the tape for this, our main event of the evening. We introduce the champion, Chris, the West Side Strangler Brennan. Let's get it all!
Guys, we're here on the podcast with the UFC's and Next Generation Liverpool's own Molly McCann. Super stoked to have her here. I've actually been trying for quite a while.
A year?
Yeah, about a year. She's finally here for our Next Generation 25, NG25 anniversary, and finally got her to sit down.
I know. Thank you for having me, boss.
I'm super, super excited for this. Let's go back before you started MMA training.
Yep.
You were boxing.
I was boxing. I was actually a professional soccer player. So I used to play for Liverpool Football Club, and I was too small. I was so small, Chris. I was about 112 pounds. Like, pissed wet through. Like, that's a saying in Liverpool that we say. And people just pushed me off the ball, and my coach said, go and try boxing. Because in Liverpool you play football or you box or do MMA now.
Right.
And then I went to boxing gym and they wouldn't let me in. So every day I keep knocking on the door. Please, can I come in today? No girls. Please today? No girls.
No girls.
Yeah, no girls. And then I just used to watch through the window, Chris, and I was just imitating them outside. And then one day the coach said, have you got a mouthpiece? And I said, yeah. And he said, all right, come in. You're sparring him. And I was like, right, okay. And it'll be like you. Sometimes you're just born with it. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes you're born with something that can't be taught. And I think I was born with probably a chip on my shoulder and just a bit of like...
Probably.
Yeah. And with you said no, so I'm going to prove to you. And anyway, I dropped the guy with a body shot and I was like, yes, like I just won a world title. And he said to me, you're the only girl who's ever been allowed in this gym. And from now on, you're the only girl who's allowed in this gym. So then I was walking around Liverpool like Paddy the Baddie. I was like, I am the champ. Do you know what I mean? And
right. Did you have boxing training before you went in there?
No.
Or you just naturally were throwing hands and landed a body shot?
I was just saying, actually, in that PT session with Will, I started when I was younger, karate and Thai boxing. And the reason for that was I watched every single Bruce Lee movie. The first book I ever bought was Bruce Lee's autobiography, and then I had every VHS, and I just used to watch his movements. And my uncle John used to say, like, the best one for philosophy that he ever released was Enter the Dragon. And he was like, if you just listen to what he says and just listen, and it, like the famous be like water, my friend quote, and there's so many quotes in that film. And then I remember, like, Jackie Chan was in it for a millisecond, and then I started watching Jackie Chan, and then I was watching Jet Li, and it was all this Golden Harvest production, all these different, what's his name? Well, there was Chow Yun-fat. There was just so many like Asian movie stars who made martial arts and philosophy just so cool. So I always tried that, but I could never get fights, and I was an aggressive kid. So there wasn't any girls who wanted to compete, so I was like, so that's why I went to soccer.
How old were you when you started playing soccer? And why are you calling it soccer?
Because you're people. Football. Football, footy. But yeah, I was playing football. I think I started at 13. I was a late bloomer to everything. 13 to 20. 13 to 15 was amateur. 16 to 20 was professional. And I loved boxing and I loved football, but nothing could keep... I've got like ADHD to the highest form, and nothing could keep me settled, and I couldn't keep... I'd get bored because the second I knew something and could do it, I'd outdo that person. It was like, well, what's the point?
So you clearly have a high athletic ability. If you started soccer that late and ended up playing for Liverpool, you started boxing that late and were ready to be... You were professional? Or
well, I won the national championships on 2 fights. So like, I've gone in as a 18-year-old, never had a senior bout, and I was fighting women who were like in the 30s, who were like British Army, armed forces, police. because everyone has like, in England, the way it's distributed, it would be like states, like
Right.
in America, and then the army has their own team, the police have their own team, and the navy have their own team. And you're like, it's like brackets, you filter all the way to the end. And then when you win the national championships, you're given a card to go and box for the national team. But when I got my card, as I say, my weight category wasn't added to the London 2012 games. So I thought, I'm not going to do something that I'm not going to be the best at, because it's a waste of my passion and my time. And boxing's not easy, but I mean, it's just two hands. Do you know what I mean? Right. And I just felt like, I don't know, I've done that now. So I just felt like I was ticking things off the list, and then I joined university. I got an injury. I tore the 3 ligaments in my ankle 3 times. So tore them in soccer, football, came back, tore them again, came back, tore them again. And I never had the same desire to play.
All of them while playing soccer?
Yeah, it was the same. I twisted inside. And then once you'll know from ankle locks and heel hooks that once a knee or an ankle goes, it's very hard to get it back to what it was. And then I went to university to be a PE teacher at high school or a professional coach. So the degree took you could have either one, whichever one you wanted. And in my final year, when I was writing my thesis, in England it's called a dissertation, but in America it's called a thesis. And I was training boxing here and there, playing football here and there at university, but I really got into alcohol and going out, getting drunk. Obviously, well, I don't think I've really.
I was into soccer, I was into this, and I really got into alcohol. I was like, oh, is that a sport as well?
Well, I'm the kind of girl who, whatever I put my name to, I'm going to be the best at, Chris. So it was like, oh, I've never drunk before because I'm going to be the best in the world at this, to having a real resentful behaviour towards. I felt like I was robbed of my chance to go to an Olympics.
Right.
I was robbed of my chance of playing football because big sluggish women just didn't tackle the ball, they tackled me, and I was just really angry. And we'd had a couple of deaths in my immediate family, like within 3 years 6 people had died, and I was just angry at the world. I didn't know how to express myself in a positive, constructive way. It was all self-sabotage, I suppose. And I discovered alcohol and recreational drugs, and I was just living what I thought at the time was the absolute best life. Like, wow, what's this? And then 2 days after, I'd be like, oh, what have I done? Why did I do that? I've let everyone down. But I was in this cycle where I actually didn't really care about anyone else, and I was just living for the high. And then I remember
how long did that go on?
About 2 years, like freshman year. And then like in our college you go for 3. Is it 3 years here as well? 4. So we have 3 years here in England.
PJ knows I didn't go to school, so he held up a 4 for me just in case I didn't know.
I'm surprised I even got into university. Well, we call it university, but you guys call it college. But I mean, like, the life that I come from, like, I had parents who were like drug addicts. I was in care, out of care. Like, I was like passed around. Different family members were looking after me, so for me to not be a raging lunatic is like a miracle, to be fair. So I'm always trying to learn, and I was always learning to be the correct person and do the correct thing, but it was a lot of trial and error. And there was a point when I just finished second year at college, and I signed up to go on a missionary to Africa, and out of there was 6,000 applicants and only six people got to go, and it was 5 men and me as the woman.
Oh, wow.
And the reason I got to go was because it didn't matter if it was all men, it was whoever was best fit for the job got to go. But from where I'm from, it's heavy gang violence. I grew up around that in the area that I'm from. I'd seen absolutely everything that there is to see growing up. And I I remember in the interview saying I just want to learn humility and understand how privileged and lucky we are, even though I haven't come from that. I'm not living in a third world country. And I had played sport at the highest level. So in Africa, it was working for Special Olympics, which I think Eugene Kennedy, JFK's sister, I think, set up. I think it was here anyway. And she set the Special Olympics up, which is the Olympics for people with special educational needs. So in the morning, I would go out in Namibia to different schools with people who were unable to do able-bodied sports, and I'd teach soccer. Now, but if you can imagine, I've gone into Namibia where most of these children have never seen white people, let alone people who speak like me.
Where are you?
Namibia.
Okay.
So if you can imagine, South Africa's there, Namibia literally looks like that. So there's South Africa, and it just okay. Clicks in there. And these kids, I'm like, right, so where's the equipment to teach the soccer? And they was going, oh, we don't have any. And I was like, right, so you want me to teach these kids who can't understand me, so you would use sport as the language. It'd be
right.
like you, I imagine, when you've been to Brazil and around the world, if they can't understand you when you're teaching, speaking, you just have to teach and show them
sure.
the movements, because sport is universal, isn't it? And they went, no, we've got nothing. So I was like, oh, the friggin' hell.
No ball?
No ball.
No ball.
So this little imagination, the ADD, was like, woo, 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 and we was on a mud field. So I was like, everyone, put your finger in the air like this, give me a wave. And all the kids like this. I was like, right, draw a soccer ball on the floor like this. So then we had our imaginary ball. I was like, right, if a defender's coming to get you, we're going to do a turn and drag the ball away from them. So I just had them doing like step overs, pretend drag backs, and then we got a load of elastic bands and made a big ball and like played with them like that. And we couldn't even, there was like a goal, but it was broke. So we ended up just going to buy like loads of like electrical duct tape, laces, and doing everything we could to make a structure to play. And I do feel like we wasn't prepped on that on purpose to see, right, what are you made of then? What can you do? So always being able to like break down barriers and try and do that thing. But the reason why I'm telling you this story is when I was in Africa, I realised what I've got going on back at home. I'm at university, I'm learning this, but I've actually achieved quite a lot in sport. Sure. And it's, am I going to be this person who goes to a bar and goes, oh, I used to be a national champion, I used to play, or am I really going to regret this in 10 years' time? So when I came back to Liverpool, it was the summer of the 2012 Olympic Games in London, and like Olympic fever was high. You know what it's like in America when these gold medals are coming home and like everyone's like, let's go. Oh, yeah. And I thought, I need to do something here. So I went to Next Gen a couple of times because one of yours, I know you graded him, Chris Fishgold.
Oh, yeah.
He was a friend of mine, and you remember a guy called Dean Garnett. Mm-hmm. He was on the college course. I was always on the same course. And they went, come down our gym whenever you want. And Danny Roberts was like, come down to our gym. And I came in, Chris and I had a look, and I was like, jiu-jitsu was literally full of like bald men who were like this and literally looked like they was all on steroids. I thought, there's no place for me here. Right. So I left, and then the next year I'm in a bar, and it's really funny how these people always come into the story of my life. But I was in a bar, and Chris Fishgold was a bouncer on the door, and I'm being a bit of a dick because I'm drunk. And he goes, right, you're going home because you're too drunk, Molly. There's a woman fighting in the UFC tonight, go and watch this fight. So I went home and, like, I shouldn't say this, but probably illegally streamed this fight because it wasn't on in the UK.
Dana doesn't mind.
Yeah, he doesn't mind anymore. And, well, for me anyway, I'll probably be the exception. But I've watched Ronda fight Liz, and I was
that was the first one, right?
First championship fight.
Yeah. February
23rd, 2013. And it was like, I remember watching these two women walk out, and Liz Carmouche actually took Ronda's back and dislocated her jaw. And I was like, what? Because like Ronda was the hype train.
Right.
And I was like, I watched the countdown on Liz Carmouche, and it was like that I can't remember if she's in the military, the Navy or the Marine, but it's one of them, like national service. And I just looked at her and she was yoked, and I thought,
jacked.
Yeah. I'm like, what? As if women, how are you? Like, that's discipline. Yeah. And it doesn't look like steroids, that just looks like hard work, because she's still petite and tiny. And then Rhonda's like this, like Californian blonde hair, just looks like the $1 million girl. And then Rhonda just turns it round, snaps that arm, and I thought, wow, can I do that? So at this time I'm drunk, and I've emailed Paul Rimmer. It's like 5 a.m. in the morning in England, and it's really funny because this email's gone quite like viral, and I was like, hey Paul, it's me, Molly. Is Rosie Sexton still at the gym? Because you'll remember Rosie.
Oh, yeah.
She was the first UFC fighter from England to be a female in the UFC.
Yep.
Does she still train? If so, I want to be like that Ronda Rousey. I'll be in tomorrow. So I remember, Chris, that was like 5 a.m. At 10 a.m. I had a shift at Subway, the sandwich shop. Obviously that's where the name comes from. I was working, making sandwiches, and I've gone in.
I was going to ask that question today.
Yeah,
where did meatball come from?
Where the meatball comes from, I used to, Paul gave me after I started training, but I went into Subway and I was still a bit half cut, and I was like, I've just seen this, I'm going to be this, I'm going to do this, and everyone's like, oh my God, all right, she's just drunk. Right. And then I went to college, and I've gone into my lecturers and the tutors, I've said I'm not coming back. Now, I had like 6 months left, and they're going, you've paid how many like thousands and thousands of dollars to do this course, why aren't you going to come and finish it? I said, I'll finish it from home, but I'm not coming in anymore. And he went, why? I said, I'm going to do UFC. So I didn't even know it was called MMA at the time. I was like, I'm going to go and do that UFC. I'm going to be like Ronda Rousey. And I left college, never went back. Went into my first class, and Paul Rimmer went, in honour of Ronda Rousey and why you've come in the gym, I'm going to teach you a double leg into an arm bar. Now, Chris, anything I've put my mind to, I've completed, and I've done it with flying colours. But this, I was like,
Right.
I had the aggression, so I could shoot in on that double leg, and I had that double leg, but the finesse and from not just doing extension and punching, and it was like pull, push, pull, spin. I was like, what is this? And I was like, I'm in. I went, Paul, he sat me down, he's like, right, what's your goals for doing this? I was like, I want to be like him and him. So I'm pointing at Chris Fishgold, I'm pointing at Paddy the Baddy. I want to be like them. I want to be a world champion, and I want to be in the UFC. And then that is how the MMA started.
That was what year?
2013. Oh, it was the day after. So it was the 24th of February, 2013. So 10 years ago last month.
Okay. And then, did you have any amateur fights?
I only had 3 because it'd be like yourself. Like, I don't probably think you even had any, did you?
We didn't have amateur yet, but like
pro.
Lucas only did 3 also. And then I was like, well, time to get paid. No reason to get punched in the face for free.
I know. I remember it being like 6 weeks. I remember sparring, so Next Gen in England was probably pretty much like what it was. Well, it would have been the same. It was like, I've arrived. I think I can knock anyone out and take down, beat, punch. So it was a lot of character building. For me, it was, I never got told how to get up. I think there was a big thing with Paul wanted to see what I could take. And not in like a nasty way, but women fighting wasn't a thing really. And it's like, if he's going to invest in this, he needs to know that I'm not going to quit.
Right.
So it was about 2 months before I really, like in the spars, don't get me wrong, like in training you get taught this and this, but I'm joining the fight team after. Everyone knows how to get up, everyone knows how to, every different submission, limbs getting taken off. I remember Paddy taking me one day, taking me down, he's punching my head in, and I've like put my hand up, and I remember he just slammed it to the floor, and he went, never expose one limb. I was like, I don't know what you're going on about. Do you know what I mean?
I'm just trying to stop you from punching me in the face.
Yeah. And I just remember it was a lot of like trial and error, and that worked to my detriment a little bit, because I didn't learn wrestling and jiu-jitsu in the correct manner, because everyone was that far ahead of me. There was no time to teach me how to come back. I didn't have money to pay for one-to-ones, because I was working, trying to go through college, pay to live and pay to train and pay to, like, it was just a lot. So I'm just trying I'm just trying. Every day, Paul, can I fight? Paul, can I fight? Paul, can I fight him? If you want to get taken down and beat, be my guest. So anyway, first fight comes, like, just destroy the girl. But I knock her down, Chris, and she's hit the floor. And the video's me, I'm just standing over her like this, thinking it's boxing. Because, you know, if you hit the floor, you have to give someone a 10 count. Yeah. And I looked at the referee and I went, fuck. So then I've just, like, ran in to finish the fight. And I always remembered, like, I'd wore 10 and 12 ounce gloves to box. But when I had them little...
fours. Yeah,
well, it was 8s at first for the amateur. But for me, I was still, like, I'm invincible. Second fight, I thought... you have like Pan Americans and championships where we have the Commonwealths, and the Commonwealth judo champion, I went up against them. So in my mind, it's like Ronda Rousey. I'm fighting the Ronda Rousey of England, and she takes me down and she mounts me, and I can just hear my uncle, and he's like, "Get up." And like, it was like a woman possessed. I think she had hooks in and she was on my back, and I just like got out, and then I just got up and I just thought, how dare you even think you can do that to me? Kneed her in the face, she's just pancaked. And then the last amateur fight was on a Cage Warriors show, and I think Danny Roberts headlined, Paddy, Adam, I think everyone from Next Gen was on the pro, and I was like the last amateur fight. And I've beat this guy. I broke my hand, actually. I've still got the big bump there. Punched us in the forehead the first fight, and I was like, what am I going to do? So then I just wrestled, and I done MMA instead of sprawl and brawl.
Right.
And then that was it. Graham Boylan was like, we'll give you the contract with Cage Warriors now. The contract never went through because they had a hiatus for about 2 years. And then I flew out to America. I trained out here in a couple of different states, and then I met a guy called Myron in Detroit, and he went, I run XFC, we've got one in Michigan, we've got one in Brazil and one somewhere else. And he went, we're doing a round robin tournament for a world title in your division, do you want to be in? Like, you'll be the wild card because you've only had one pro fight. I went, yeah. So I just so I just flew to Brazil on my own to go and fight this girl, and absolutely punched her head. And Chris, like, I've walked in, and you know that Brazilian, like, they're all shouting like "Vroom vam," I hate, like spitting on me, throwing stuff on me. Like, it was a hexagon, and it was in a nightclub of 5 floors. So if you can imagine, I'm walking in, and I'm stood there, and everyone's giving it to me because I'm like this white girl from England, and I've got like the St. George's, the English flag, and I'm like walking through, and they're like giving it all. They're throwing shit on me, and I was like, I was born for this. Like, I am, but like, you're not intimidating me. I was going, come on, on my own. Didn't take
That's
my
crazy.
coaches with me. Do you know what I mean? Lost the decision. Didn't, like, I mean, dropped the game. Right. Like, XFC had to take the video down. Do you know what I mean? Because they was getting it. But fighting a girl from Sao Paulo in Sao Paulo, my own fault for not finishing the fight. When you know you're going to a different country sometimes, or a different state, you know that you've got to finish them, don't you? So it was a learning lesson, and I thought, I'm game, this is going to happen, especially with my style. It's like, if someone can negate my style, then it's going to be really hard for me to always win. So it's constant evolution and trying to learn from that. But then...
Did you never fight in Cage Warriors?
Yeah.
Okay.
I went back home. I said, Rimek, because I took 2 years off from Next Gen because my stepfather got terminally ill, and he lived a couple of hours away from Next Gen. So I moved there, nursed him to death, tried to look after my mum and help her through her stuff. And then when she had finished with her grief, Paddy and Chris Fishgold both just won a world title, and my mum said, you can go back to Liverpool now. And then I had 3 fights under Next Gen in Cage Warriors, and then I got the title shot, and it was so crazy because I was the main event and Paddy was the opening of the main card because he had just lost the fight before against Nadner Rahmani. So he was
do you rub that in that you were the
never
main event?
no no, because it's just like, he'd be laughing at me now, won't he? He'd be like, 7-figure deal, bitch. I'm like, yeah, all right, that lad. But no, I feel like whenever me and him fight, it was always a different energy in the arena, and he opened the card, set it off, and I shut it down, and I won the... Do you know what's a crazy thing? 5 years to the day that I sent Paul Rimmer that email, I won the world title in Liverpool, headlining a arena. Little Molly, do you know, who wasn't allowed in those gyms.
Where were you?
In Liverpool.
At
Next Gen.
the arena.
Oh, the arena. It was in Liverpool. It was called... it's called the M&S Bank Arena.
Okay. Cool.
And so I was like, oh my God. And then I won the belt. I think I'm the best person that there's ever been. And then 3-4 weeks later, I was 72 kilo. So I fight at 56. So me and Paddy are
You're
like...
on Paddy's diet.
I was doing the Paddy. I was doing the Paddy, and Chris, I think I was like 10 pints deep. Story of my life. When I'm not in camp, I still like a drink. And I was like standing there, and I was having this interview, and someone was like, UFC's coming to Liverpool, do you want to be on it? And I kind of said, like, in my city, like, I don't need to beg. I'm not going to beg for a fight on that card. Like, I am I'm not a seat at the table, I am a table. I've just headlined this arena. And Graham Boylerman and Paddy's manager goes, no, you're not on it. You're not on it. So I'm like, sound, I'll go and watch. I'll just keep living like I was never supposed to be a world champion. So I'm like, I'm living that life. And then I get a phone call, Molly, 5 weeks time, UFC Liverpool, you're fighting Gillian Robertson. I was like, honestly, in my belly, like, we've got this famous saying, like, my arse fell out of me. Like, I was just like, oh. I was crying because I was so happy. But in the same breath, I was like, what's 170? What's lightweight? 155?
Mm-hmm.
I was at 155 pounds
fighting at 25?
Fighting at 25. Fat. Not like, I'm probably 140 now in shape.
Right.
Like, I was fat. I had got to the top, the elite part of the sport off this. Like, it was like proper Irish fighting, like a Guinness fight. And I fought a girl called Gillian Robertson. Now she's got the most submission defense.
So she's a tough matchup on short notice. She's a tough matchup anyway.
But I didn't know who she was.
Right, stylistically, but on a short notice fight, that's even worse. That's a tough stylistic matchup.
And it was one of them, if you don't take this now, the flyweight division's just being opened, and there's too many people in it.
Right.
So you're not going to get in this for a couple of years. And I was thinking, I'm 27, or I was 28. I was thinking, I haven't got time to burn. And like, if we go back to the story of me, it's like, well, whatever I touch, if I believe, I can conceive and I can make this happen. So I'm walking out and I'm thinking, I am the effing nuts. Do you know what I mean? I'm like, yes, everyone's screaming for me. And I just, inside, I thought, I'm coming. And it was that thing of, this girl is like, she is jiu-jitsu. Like, she is a human backpack. She's Damien Maia of women's MMA. If she gets you, it is good night Vienna. But if she doesn't, you'll get the win. Like, if she can't grip you, you'll be okay. So I know if she takes me down, she will submit me. But I know if I land a shot, I'm going to knock her out. So first round comes, the chants, Molly, Molly, Molly. I'm like, that, yes. So she's running at me. I'm hitting her with like a 3-piece spinning off, so I'm not going back in a straight line. Levels low. I'm not giving her anything. She took me down with a minute to go of the round, and I was fine. I was good. She elbowed me and cut my eye. So it's the first time I've had to face any adversity in a fight to that magnitude, and with that pressure of the UFC. Like I'm not sure if Lucas feels pressure, but there's a pressure between being on a regional show and being on Bellator.
Sure.
There's a pressure, yeah.
Absolutely.
And you'll know from when you've been on regional shows and then you was going out and then performing at the highest level. And when I was in the corner, I've watched the fight back a million times, and I can see normally when I receive information, I take a drink, Paul tells me something, I go, she's like, keep doing this, that and that, that's working, isn't it? He goes, yeah, why don't you just add this a little bit more and then you'll get the finish? And I was going, did they win the round? Like, what happened? And I was like, I can't see out my eye. And in that moment, when I watch it, I go, I effed it there. Absolutely, like, My head had gone.
Lost right there.
Yeah, I can see my head's gone.
Yeah.
And when I've come out, the crowd was still very much for me. Like every time Gillian came for me and got me, the second I disengaged, I mean, she got like a body lock. I stripped it and ran, and she's running, and I got away, and you can hear the whole crowd go, yes, you know, because I got away from it.
Right.
And then she switched on something to do with law, stepped in with a right hook, and she pulled guard on a single. And I had just never had that done to me in MMA. Now, if I had invested a lot more time in jiu-jitsu,
Right.
I would have been, yeah, whatever. Do you know what I mean? But at that point of time, I had got from walking into his gym to being a world champion to being in the UFC. I thought I had it all down, and I absolutely didn't. So got put in a rear naked choke, and she switched it to a short choke, and I just thought, I'm always going to go out on my shield when I can. If it's an armbar, a knee bar, a kimura, I'm going to tap, but on a choke. So I'm like, I'm out. Like, my eyes were open and the choke was on, and I was out for about 6 seconds before the ref called it. And like, I was like giving it all that, do you know what I mean? Like, the crowd was in bits. Like, and then I got up and I've opened my eyes, Chris, and I was going to the Dominican Republic the next week on vacation. And I've opened my eyes and I went,
Do you think you're already there?
I went, are we in Barbados? Because the lights was hot. The grain of the canvas felt like sand, and I'd never been asleep. Do you know what I mean? And then I've woke up, and then I'm lying there and I'm looking, and you know when like the arenas, even at Bellator and the UFC, it's like lights up, and it was like UFC Liverpool.
Right.
And I was like, oh, has the UFC come to Liverpool? And then I looked and I was like, oh my God, I'm fighting. And then if you can imagine your first loss, it's like you've just been, like someone's rang you and told you your parents died. It's like, and I was like, no one has taught me to face this.
Yeah.
Like, losing's not in my vocabulary. Like, what? And then I just remember holding Paul's finger, like he was like my dad. And I was like, I didn't tap. He said, I know, darling. I said, I'm so sorry I didn't tap. And I was just crying to him, I'm so sorry I've let you down, blah, blah. And he just took me into that room and was just holding me. He's like, it's okay. And that was like the biggest lesson of my life. So I said to Paul, I don't want to feel like that again. So how do we change this? So I said 100 days of jiu-jitsu. I gave my gloves away, gave me mouthpiece away, shin guard. I'm not doing that no more. Every day, jiu-jitsu every morning, jiu-jitsu every night. We'll go to different countries and take part in jiu-jitsu tournaments on my own, hood up, no one knew it was me. My name got called, let's go. Killed everyone on the mat, guillotine. I tried to see in the style in our gym who I was most like, and it was like Chris Fishgold, very wrestling based, very scrambly, and I just thought, right, I've got that. If I need to advance from that, then I will, but I'm just going to work on that for a bit. And then Paul said, you're not fighting again until you can tap a black belt and not get submitted by one. And I was like, oh, great. Here we go. So I got beat in May. In December, we had King of the Mat. And me and I didn't think I was allowed to do it because I think I was a bit injured. So me and Adam Ventry has gone to the pub. And we're like, we're just, because it's the Christmas night out,
Right.
Everyone's going for a party. We'll just have a beer or two. So we sat there, and then I've come in. Rosie Sexton's walked in, Paddy's walked in, Chris Fishgold's walked in, and they was all getting the black belts off Paul. His first ever black belt he's given, so he was like this. And he goes, Molly, get your kit on. Like, my face is bright red from the beer. I'm like, what? And he's gone, you're rolling, come on, Rosie's in. I'm like, just about a blue belt. But I'm like, all right, I've put all this graft in. Go and show them. So, you know, when you're King of the Mat, everyone will start with a similar weight with each other. But I was like, can't I have Sophie Keenan? She's like only purple. He's like, no. So anyway, me and Rosie Sexton roll for 50 minutes. 50 minutes.
Wow.
King of the Mat. There's 4 of us left. Me and Rosie back and forth. I snap Rosie down and spin into a bulldog choke and sift through. And I mean, do you know when you've got nothing left? And I was just thinking, I can't let this go. Bear in mind, she's just got a black belt. And I was just squeezing, and I felt like she was just like, I don't care, like, you've got me. And then I was like, and then I can't remember if you remember Paul Webb, but he just ratted, like, this guy was like 240 pounds.
Easy.
He's just come and picked me up and just done that. I was like, you.
Son of a bitch.
And at the end of the King of the Mat, Paul Rimmer went Molly, and then he just went, here's your purple belt, give me my belt. And then he was like, mate, you're allowed to fight again. 4 months later was UFC London, got my first win in the UFC, got a broken orbital bone in the last round of the fight, and again had to fight through that adversity, like broken bone, eye bulging, you know, even if you cough, your eyeball could come out here, like, and I just showed loads of heart, took her down, nearly got this arm bar, nearly got like the fairy tale ending to that fight, but it didn't come. But I still got my hero's moment in fighting through a broken orbital.
Is that the fight where you got the takedown and you're like, I got takedown? I remember I was watching, I was dying laughing.
Yeah.
Because you were proud, obviously, that you used wrestling in your fight.
Absolutely, because I just decided to be more MMA. And it's like, if we're going back 10 years, Chris, or even 7 or 6 years, when people get to a professional level, sometimes they try and keep their discipline of what they came to MMA in and make it work. Like, if you look at Anthony Pettis, his taekwondo kicks is his thing. If you look at, what's his name? Thompson, Wonderboy from... He keeps karate, and he stays like that. So I'd always just relied on this, when ultimately my aggression, my pressure and my conditioning is what wins me fight. So I thought, start taking them down. And I went on a 3-fight win streak, and I mean I just mixed boxing with wrestling. So I punched them, step back, let them come in, knee to the floor double, like I know you don't really do that in MMA, but I was just getting that knee to the floor and letting it all come together.
Sure.
And then I feel like the evolution started, and my martial arts game became a lot better. And then COVID happened, and then I got this fight with this girl called Talia Santos, and I thought,
she's a girl who so Valentina, one of my favorite female fighters.
Yeah.
I thought Talia Santos beat her.
I do.
Did you?
Yes.
Like, I thought she beat her, and I was cheering for Valentina, but it didn't. In my opinion, it didn't happen.
Yeah, I remember going to Fight Island, and you can imagine when all this COVID stuff first happened, and no one knows
big.
No one knows when they're getting paid again. So you just take a fight,
right.
And we're a gym that has never turned a fight down.
Right.
You don't go no. You just go, yeah, fine, okay. So I've got to the weigh-ins, Chris, and I've looked at it, and she's got 9-inch reach on me, and then I'm starting to look at her up and down. And this isn't me being salty, but you know when someone's juiced out of the mind, and I was like, oh, this is going to be a long night. Because for me to get in past that range, and then if you clinch me, it's going to be a tough night. So I'm thinking, right, how am I going to win? How am I going to win? How am I going to win? And then in this first round, she kept soccer kicking me. And I was like, oof, I haven't really felt that before. Like, I've never seen someone kick with the toes just to stab and just to take the wind out of my sails.
Yeah.
And then the end of the first coming, I thought, I'm not taking any more of this. So I slipped a jab, and with everything in my arsenal, I threw this big overhand, and it completely split her eye. And I thought, I can finish this fight. Like, if I can take her down, I know this sounds a bit mad, but like, open that up, get into it, just be nasty, make the cut horrible, I'm going to win. The ref will stop it. But anyway, it probably went against me, because from that moment she was like, no. And she got me in these positions where in the Jillian fight, I would have been submitted. But in this fight, she took me down off a body lock, because she was just that much bigger and stronger on the floor. I was like, right, feet on hips, get the whizzer, pop up, got in, head position turned. And I was putting darces, got my back tucked, but I was always able to get out of it and pop back up. But I just wasn't expecting that fight, and she got the win. And then I went home and I was like, right, we've got to sort that out again. Do you know what I mean? But it wasn't this time. It wasn't that my grappling wasn't good enough.
Right.
It was just like the game plan. MMA had evolved again. Do you know what I mean? So we're always jiu-jitsu, MMA, grappling, striking. It always has this flow to just keep elevating and keep changing. And I was like, right, well, we've got to go back to work. Do you know what I mean? And then we kind of got to a point where Paddy got signed to the UFC, And
Were you there first?
yeah, so I had I had 6 fights
Before he got there.
before he got there, and then he had arrived before he'd arrived. Like everyone in the world,
Oh, absolutely.
everyone.
I believe that he had turned down.
He turned down the UFC twice.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
I had someone, God, it's got to be 8 or 9 years ago, that was a matchmaker for Bellator way back then, that was offering me $10,000 or $15,000 to get him or Chris to sign with them.
I know.
They're offering me the bonus
I
to
know.
get them to sign. I was
the
like,
thing-
damn, they really want these guys.
They are like, I still say to Paul Rimmer, until I've submitted someone in the cage, I'm not next gen. He's like, what do you mean? I said, because the culture, the ethos and everything that is about our gyms is that style of fighting.
Sure.
Do you know what I mean? So just for me, like my bucket list, I'll be like, I will walk around like this once I've done that. Do you know what I mean? I mean, I've been so close.
Yeah.
But what I've realised is women don't tap to like an arm bar. You've got to put it this way, or triangle them, because they just
Right.
don't tap. So me and Paddy both got to fight in Vegas together. It was supposed to be London, but because of COVID, 2 weeks before it got pushed to Vegas. So we was a bit like,
And it was in the
Apex.
So real quick, sorry to interrupt. I was so disappointed because I know the pop that you guys bring, and I was like, they're really gonna debut them in the fucking Apex
and
of
for
all
Paddy
the
though,
places.
for Paddy to
Yeah.
be debuted in the Apex,
I was like, they're not getting the full effect of him, not understanding.
his
you know,
walkout,
Yeah,
like.
yeah, none of it.
I remember saying to Paddy, like, I'm really sorry I'm on your debut. He's like, what? I said, I just want for you to have what I had. Is like, it's about you and it's not just us, and this is your moment to shine, lad. This is what you've worked for. Do you know what I mean? But it probably worked even better because that was like the fight of my life. Like I was told, like, I was the last fight in my contract. If I won, I was straight back into contention. If I lost, I was getting cut. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
And I went out first, and one of our coaches got COVID, so we only had 2 coaches because Paddy was on after me. So Adam Ventry had to warm Paddy up whilst Ellison Paul was with me. But luckily enough, my manager Graham was able to come in and come in my corner. Even though we didn't say nothing, it was just good to have the full team
Sure.
there. And I fought a girl called Kim who had a 10-inch reach on me, and I was just like a bull in a china shop. Head movement, just slipping outside of a shot and just nailing it. I think I got 2 takedowns in there as well, and she headbutted me in the first round and has dropped me. And I knew when I was on the floor, Chris, you know, there's them moments in your life where you can go, I can be defeated right now, and this is my out. So this is my moment of there be no shame in just being like,
Right.
and I thought, not today, Molly McCann, you fucking get up. You get up.
Not taking that out.
I'm not taking, no, get up. And I literally took my time, because if you can imagine, I'm on the floor, dove in on a door, like, to hide my head under here on a panic shot. And then she's starting to, like, punch the back of my head and elbow my spine. And I think it was, like, 3 elbows. The ref didn't say nothing. And I just climbed in. I let it tear me, and I thought, compose yourself here. There's 3 minutes left. Just compose yourself. So it took me, like, a minute and a half to come back, not take any damage, sustain the wrestling. And then the last minute, I, like, spun it and then just started letting the strikes go. And in that second and third round, I just put a pasting on her, and she was, like, constantly going. And then when I got that win, I was like, I've arrived, because that was the performance of my life. And then I went into the changing rooms. So I was getting interviewed by a Megan Levy, and Paddy's walking out, and I remember, and I was watching it on the monitor, and the first round he was losing. It didn't even go to the second.
Who was the first one?
Ventramini. So it's
Oh,
when
yeah,
he
yeah.
finished them with strikes.
Yeah.
And I was watching him, and I was thinking,
Lost the first half of the first round.
yeah, I was thinking, you've done that because they haven't been in there warming you up. You've had to come in cold. And then I've went, Meg, I'll be back in a minute. Like, I'm like, I've got ice on my hands because I've broke it. I've got rosary beads around my neck, and I've, like, run out, and I'm, like, singing Paddy, like, and I'm getting the crowd going, and, like, he's just got up, and then he's just threw this flying knee and just spun at him. And I remember when he's knocked him out, I literally ran from the other side of the room, and there's amazing video footage of me, Paul and Ellis, just, like, jumping on each other, because before I walked out for that fight, I went, lad, we're going to go and shake up the world. He went, you know that, Mal. So I've gone and done my job, he's done his job, and I just remember us all just in there together, just having this moment, doing the interviews. We went back to the hotel because we was in quarantine, and we sat there. Graham Boylan's recording me, and I've just got this phone call, and he's gone, you got fight of the night, and I'm just crying my eyes out, because at that moment it was like 22. It's not a lot of amount. It's a lot of money,
Right.
44, but when you give 30% to America tax, you lose 20% to your British tax, and then you give your percentage to your team. It's not a lot, do you know what I mean? And then I get this phone call, and I thought, oh my God, I'm going to be able to put a deposit down on a house here. And then we get another phone call, and Paddy's got the bonus. And then I remember, like, you've got like Henry Hooft coming sitting with us having a drink, and Jack Shaw, I think you really like his style of fighting, because he's very much like Lucas. They had won, and we'd all done it together, and we'd all come through Cage Warriors together. We'd done this, and all of Graham's, there was 4 of us of Graham's fighters has all won. And in that moment, I didn't realise the effect that we had in that moment. When we got back to Liverpool, nothing was ever the same again.
Yeah.
Nothing was ever the same again. It was mad.
So I wanted to get to that. We actually talked for a split second about it in California, and I brought up just seeing Peter Queeley's walkout in Ireland, and it's huge in Bellator. You and Paddy is a whole different level, and it's how do you thrive off of it? Does it put a shit ton of pressure at the same time? It must a little bit. And then, you know, Paddy is larger than life. You guys, actually, before we get to that, how did you guys get so, you know, intertwined in such a tight group or tight friendship?
I feel like
Just coming up?
you come up at the same time, and this isn't a disrespect to anyone else who came up with us, but you could always rely on us to find a way to win.
Right.
And to pull it out the bag somewhere. Do you know what I mean? And Paddy has been in positions sometimes where he's like nearly been finished striking, especially against like a Rosa, but finds a way to always come through. And I've kind of been the same. And then we've also, me and Paddy are the only people to win world titles in that Liverpool arena, and then in the next fight lose. So he lost his world title, whereas I lost in the UFC. In that same arena. And I feel like when we've gone up and come low at the same time, I was asking him, like, lad, like every time I go to sleep, I'm waking up in that cage where I got put to sleep. I feel like I've embarrassed the city. I am struggling here. And he'd have conversations with me about how much it affects him, how much it destroyed his soul. And then Paddy had a bit of a mad journey where he peaked very young, believed in the hype, then got beat, and then realised his life really changed.
Right.
And he went from a little bit of a, like, divvy, like an idiot, to, like, becoming a man who I'm really proud to be associated. I was always proud of him, but sometimes he'd just be a tool.
Sure.
Do you know what I mean? And because he was young, and that's what you do, and I've probably been there as well, but the man I seen him grow into, I was like, that's my mate. That's my mate. Look at that. Do you know what I mean? And then when we've come up together in the UFC, we are the only people who've gone from just being like known to like overnight your life, well, not the only people, but the only people we know.
Right.
Who are dealing and going through the same thing at the same time. And it's hard. So then I think it made us do this a little bit more.
Sure.
And then we both got... He got signed by Barstool after the fight we both had in September in the Apex. And then when we fought in London, after my elbow, when I'm walking out of the cage, Robbie Fox, who works for Barstool, was like, Dave Portnoy says, welcome to Barstool. And I was like, wow. So we're just getting a sponsorship deal just to be us, where we can be ridiculed for being as honest and for being us, and sometimes we can be championed for that. I feel like we know each other's boundaries. And you know, I think what the biggest thing is, I can't take Paddy's spotlight off Paddy, and he can't take his off me, because we're different sex.
Right.
We hit different, like, we stand the same side on terms of like political views and standing up for the man and for those who need a voice. And we both have our own charitable stuff where he does stuff for mental health. I do stuff to lower knife and gun crime and bring our community up through getting them full-time employment through MMA and boxing. And we very much mirror each other and sometimes cross over and take it and then come back. But I don't know, we can't, there's no way to kind of steal the other's shine. And I think with Fishy and with him, there was constant ego.
Yeah, sure.
And it's only because they'd been fighting for your, say if you've come over or they've come here, they want your approval.
Right.
And then it would be the same every day with Paul. And if one got paid more than the other, if one more fight more emphatic than the other, they would just always, I don't know, it's just the alpha male of the gym.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
But
you guys all of a sudden were larger than life. Like it was a definitely like a team between the two of you, you know, and it's been awesome to watch. Like, and I love that they cover it. You know, they show you guys after, I forget who won, but they showed you guys in the crowd, you know, right away. Was it
so
during the Adesanya fight maybe or somebody? I forget who it was.
Well, do you know, I won. And when so they're showing my elbow on the screen,
yeah,
and then they show Paddy, and Paddy, it gives me, look at them goosebumps. It makes me really emotional to see, like, to watch him be that happy for me to win.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean? Like, honestly, it proper makes me emotional. And then as I'm walking out, I've gone to do the interviews, and Dana's PA, Renee, I forget which one it is, she's gone, no, you're coming to sit next to Dana. I've gone, what? He's gone, yeah, he wants you to sit there whilst Paddy's fighting. Dana's gone, there's a bottle of Howler Head Kid, so he's opened it for me, and I'm like, yes! So I'm drinking the whiskey with him, and then he wins, and then I'm going out of my mind, and then we're both allowed that moment. It was a really iconic moment. I was allowed
in the cage, right? Yeah.
And then me and him are doing this victory thing, and it was like, there's never been two people on the same card who've been in the cage together at the same time, and there's never been a man and a woman off the same team in the cage at the same time. And in that moment, like, our little Next Gen family just sat there, and when we're getting our pictures taken, we all just sat there for a minute, and we just realised what we had just done. And then so that was the March, and then in the July, we done it again.
Right.
No one got a knockout. The card was flat. I come out, elbow this girl again. Then Dana goes, go and do the walk with Paddy. And I'm like, oh my God. So my walkouts are special for me because the song that I walk out to is all about Liverpool. And it's like my city, my people, my heart. I've got it tattooed on me, and it just gets me ready to kill. Paddy's is like an EDM concert. Like, right. Lights go off, everyone's wigs are out, lights are on, and as Paddy's coming out for the walkout, he walks past me, and I go, lad, I'm allowed to do the walkout with you? And he goes, nice one, Mol. And then we just walk out as this fame. Dave Portnoy from Barstool's with us, and he's like this, because he doesn't know if he's adding more pressure to us. Right. He doesn't know. And I just grab him, and I go, second round finished, don't worry, it's all good. We've walked out with him, din, and do you know what I mean? And then we sat there, and then Paddy gets that finish again, and I don't know. I just feel like Next Generation is there. Sure. Do you know what I mean? Oh, yeah. But when you were saying about the walkout...
So, yeah, to get back to the walkout now, that there's no fighters in the United States, just because the United States isn't like that, where they're behind one person so big. And you guys, like... You could just be from Ireland or from England and over there, and people are going to scream and cheer for you. Yeah. But you guys have it to a whole different level where the entire country is behind you.
Yeah, like, do you know what's mad though, Chris? When I came to fight in MSG, I was getting ready to walk out to the weigh-ins, and obviously all my family's Irish, and I represent England and Ireland. And when I'm about to walk out, I thought, oh my God, she's from here. I'm going to get booed. So I thought, like, prep yourself to be booed off the stage. It was a hero's welcome, and I've walked on stage and I'm like on my tiptoes going, ah, and they can see what it means to me. Dana, Hunter, Sean, Mick, they're just looking, and I think they thought, oh wow,
we're the United States.
Yeah, whoa, like we knew but we didn't know. And then Evans walked out and got booed, and like there's the famous, like, we're looking at each other, and I'm not like, I don't say anything bad, but I went, I thought this was your town. She went, it is. I went, doesn't sound like it, love. And then I was just like that to the crowd. And then on the walk out again, MSG, Homer Boxing, My Holy Grail, can't believe I'm there. And I just heard din, 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 din. So the guitar instrumental for my walkout, I've looked up. There's Mexican flags, there's Ireland flags, there's Puerto Rican flags. Everyone is singing my walkout tune. I was like, that, oh my God. She walks in, she's got booed, and I was just like, this is universal now. Yeah. The song, the walkout is universal, but what I've learned is if I'm erratic on the walkout and I'm like too much into my feelings, it becomes a fight, and it doesn't, I'm not like, I'm just like bam, bam, bam. And then I realised in my last few fights, take every bit of their energy and accept that, invite that in. The second I close that door, I'm going to absolutely destroy you here. Whereas before, I would have wasted so much energy on the walkout. And I feel like Paddy, it's like you've just jabbed him with energy. It's like he takes it, he's din, 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 in. And then I always think it's mad because Paul made mine and his nickname. But when we get into that cage, it changes from like the happy-go-lucky character to like the meatball is like,
right.
The baddie is like, he does this thing, do you know what I mean? And yeah, I don't think it's false. I don't think it's a persona, but I think like for you to do damage on someone, you can't just be that normal person, do you know what I mean? And you have to, that switch is there. And I think the music is the initiation to taking you to that place to go and be a killer.
So I say that to a lot of people, like if you're in this sport, if you're doing this sport, something somewhere along the line has caused you to be able to mount someone and punch their brains out, you know,
strange, isn't it?
When they turn over, to choke the life out of them until they tap, you know, to punch or kick or knee them in the face for sport, you know, for money. Mm-hmm. And I use Lucas as an example because he's a super normal kid, you know, but he will squeeze the life out of you and knock your brains out, you know, and it's just,
he's like a snake, isn't he? He just constricts.
And he had a extremely normal life, you know, coming up. So I'm always like, well, what is it? Where's his? Because I came up like crazy, fighting, trouble, you know, whatever, kind of like you did. And so I see guys like that are actually just good at the sport and wonder how does that click. He's an athlete,
though. I think like his meticulous ways of like of his plan, his future, his goals. He's just like mental level. He's like the Rain Man. Do you know what I mean? He's like, he just like sees it. Like he can read Matrix code in real time.
Yeah,
that's like do you know like when Neo, when he sees everything in code. I really think that's like Lucas every day when he's on the mat or in the cage.
He has a whiteboard at home during fight camp that looks just like that. I'm like, yep, I can't understand that, but you can.
Yeah, I just think like when someone hasn't had. I'm a fighter because I've had to fight for breath and fight for life every single day. Paddy's a fighter because he walked in the gym and he's like, his family's actually athletes and all, like professional soccer players and all stuff like that. Like the genes are in him, but he's just a little bit tapped. And then you've got Lucas, who's the whole other end of the spectrum.
Right.
In terms of like, my job is to go in there, make this the easiest night of my life. I'm not getting paid for overtime. Good night. Thanks for the check. Bye.
Right.
But like, when you've got these ends of the spectrums, like you were saying the other day, he's having to learn to do the podcasts, to do the talk. Ultimately, no one really wants to do these bits.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? But when
That's why it took me a year to get you here.
No, I'd do anything for you, Chris. But when you're learning to do this bit, you have to understand that I wouldn't speak. I wouldn't want someone to waste an hour, 20 minutes, 50 minutes of their life of me chatting shit. Do you know what I mean? Like if I'm speaking, I want to change someone's thought process, change the day, or give them something for taking the time to listen. And I think Paddy's very much the same as that as well. And Lucas will be starting the transformation to do that. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? And there's a thing, and me and Paddy can sometimes go too much one way, and Lucas could be too much the other way. And there's always finding a happy medium. But if you don't speak and you only leave your talent to do the talking, and prize fighting it won't work as well.
Yeah.
Olympic sport it will, and to a certain degree it will. Like, I don't know, but Demetrius Johnson didn't speak. He just let his talent do the job, and he will never be remembered for the fighter and for the GOAT that he is.
He was also the least paid champion
ever.
GOAT ever.
Yeah. And then you can have, I don't know, I think I'm probably more higher paid than most people in my division, and I'm one off ranked again.
But you put asses in the seat.
But so
Constantly.
it's just finding that are you a fan favourite or are you the best, and can we put a bit of showbiz in there that doesn't take away your integrity and that doesn't make you false? Do you know what I mean? Because if you start acting, it's like everyone just goes, no.
Right.
I'm like Colby Covington. No one likes you now, brother, because...
And it's obvious that he's acting.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
You guys seem extremely genuine, and they just happen to say, hey, let's put a camera on these guys because they're hilarious.
Sometimes you think, like, what are you going to get? Like, sometimes Paddy will just be, like, stoned like this, or I'll be drunk, and they're just like, this could be a TV series. Pad, have you seen this? And he's like, yeah. Do you know what I mean?
So real quick before we wrap up, what do you when you said your life was never the same after the fight and you went back, you know, how is it to deal with now? You know, like we talked about it again the other day when I mentioned to you after the fight team training. I was like, Lucas spent hours the other night after his fight taking pictures, signing autographs. And Tyler was upstairs afterwards. He goes, yeah. He goes, I don't ever look forward to that. You know, I was like, but you know, that is what it, as boring and as whatever that is what it's all about. And then I said, imagine being, of course they don't.
Yeah.
Imagine being you know, is what I said. And what is that like now compared to coming up without that at all?
It's really hard because say me and Paddy came up not last September, this September before. And I think it took me a year to understand what was happening because every fight got higher and higher. The finishes got better and better, and the eyes got more and more. Like, imagine, I woke up on fight day last July, London #2, and Drake has put $2.8 million on me and Paddy to win. Champagne Poppy on Instagram, Scouse Parlay, here we go. And I'm like, the Drake case, oh my, like,
yeah.
And I'm thinking, how the does Drake know who I am? And then I looked and he followed me and everything. I was like, when you see these, like, your peers, like Misha Tate followed me one day, do you know what I mean? Or like, even like someone like Helen Morales, however you say it in wrestling.
Morales.
When I've looked up to these women in sport and these men, Izzy Adesanya, Gilbert Burns, all these people who you look up to, I'm a fan first before I'm a fighter, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm in the same breath of them as in terms of they'll engage with me and speak to me. Joanna Jędrzejczyk coming to find me, hey, let's go for a drink later, I can't wait for you to fight, let me know if you want to do any training. I'm just like, what? And for the first September till July, it was like overwhelming in terms of being tired all the time because you can never be off.
Right.
It's like, even in Texas, everywhere I go, I'm known.
Yeah.
And if you can imagine that, like, on steroids, that's what it's like in Europe.
Yeah.
America's a bit more reserved, so they'll go, it's not like, give me this, I want this. I realised, Chris, you will have known this at the height of your notoriety, that people just want, can you teach me this, can you do me this, can you sign this, I need you to do this for charity. What do you mean you haven't got signed gloves? What? I'm like, sorry, I don't just have a library of gloves that I can just give out willy-nilly. Like, you might know me, but I'm not earning millions.
Yeah.
And it took me, it was a long time for me to realise, like, I had nothing left. So come when we won 3 fights back to back, we was in Chicago, and I was starting to break down, and I was like, my central nervous system was through the floor. Like, I was just that exhausted. Someone could look at me and I'd start crying. And it got to a point, I'm making this all sound like it's amazing. It wasn't, Chris. Like, I was on my hands and knees and had to ring my mum, and I was like, I've had consistent dreams about killing myself. Different ways in which that I'm going to do that. That's not the Molly McCann that you see here today. That's not the Molly McCann that's not cool, do you know what I mean? But it just got too much, and I had to sit the team down and I had to say, I'm not Paddy. I can't deal with it the same way that he can. I'm going to need help. So I had to see a bit of like wellness and well-being, mental stuff, a bit of therapy, a bit of sports psychology, and just help me round out the fact that I can't please everyone. I can't say yes to everything. And I have to set my boundaries, and me being full and having, like, even just, you're the head of all of our gyms, and you hold the greatest respect out of we hold you up there. And old me, like when I was having a massage down there, you'd have been like, right, we're ready. I'd be like, yeah, okay. But I'm like, no, Chris, no. Like, I knew I just needed 20 more minutes for me to be able to do this properly, to train and to be the best me. So
Sure.
for me to create boundaries for myself without being rude, with being respectful and understanding how, that's not my alarm, and understanding just how to be. And it literally took me, when I lost that fight in November, I come off social media and I was like, that whole fight camp, I was battling with all of this, and that's not why I lost at all, because that was the best camp of my life. But I remember, Chris, when I was training, I was perfectly fine, and then when I wasn't training, honestly, I felt like, if you can imagine the worst ever thing that's happened to you, and when you're like, when someone's died and you're like, that's how I was feeling. I was living in a permanent state of fight or flight, and I had to learn how to deal with that. And now I have, it's a little bit easier. And I took 2 months out of the gym. So when I lost, didn't even go to Paddy's fight in December, didn't go back to the gym till middle of January, nearly February. I was just like, can I still do what I need to do without being tapped in here? Because ultimately, none of that is worth this.
Sure.
Like, your mental well-being is everything. And when I was teaching the English MMA Association, I was teaching our national team, and I was like, when I was teaching them, they made me smile and they made me happy. And then I remember saying at the end of the session, when we was prepping for the World Championships, I went, because of you today, I'm ready to be a fighter again. And I'll never forget that moment where I thought, not man up, but it's like, you're built to overcome this. You're built to be able to do anything you put your mind to. Just get back to it. And then, I don't know, I feel like this trip to America also, I've never felt this happy since all the fame and all the everything. And I can't wait to just do MMA and fight.
It's probably a little bit of a break.
I mean,
even though people know you, they're,
they're being so, do you mind having a round? I was saying though, like, me boundaries today, for the first 2 days, I've just rolled with anyone who's wanted to roll. Not really white belts, because in case they injure me, but like the big guys, the big guys I've rolled with, and I thought, my body's taken a bit of damage now, so for me to be able to enjoy this trip also, it's about me getting positives. Like, all week I hadn't submitted anyone because I'd been getting mauled by big black belts, and then going with people my belt or my weight today, and I'm subbing people, it's like, oh yeah, I'm okay.
Yeah,
I'm okay.
Much better.
Yeah, so all in all, I don't know. It's a good life to live. I do wake up, and especially since we've been out here, I thought, how was a kid from Norris Green, was in LA, Bellator, Temecula, Texas, in the Next Gen, I'm sitting on a mat, and most people won't think like this, but I was thinking, I'm sitting on a mat of like 23 black belts here. I am in the presence of this. I'm getting to speak to this and getting to learn these lessons. And some people, I don't know, where people sometimes are entitled and just think they deserve that. I don't ever think that I deserve that. So when I get that, I'm like, do you know what I mean? So I feel like my glass is overflowing at the minute, and it's a nice place to be.
Let's end with that.
Go on then, lad.
Thank you very much.
Make sure you watch, like, and subscribe his stuff, or you get one
Tell
of
'em.
these.
Thank you, guys.
It is all over, just like that.